Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of From No Crypto to No Crypto. I'm your host, the crypto coach, Blockchain Wayne. Today we're joined by Dr. Jamar Montgomery. Dr. Jamar, thanks for joining us today.
Man, thank you so much for having me, Wayne. I'm glad that we were able to connect and make this happen.
Definitely, man. This is going to be an interesting podcast. We're not just going to talk about crypto or blockchain, but it's safe to say the whole world is meshing into that, right? So the political landscape and other stuff. And you've got a unique background to discuss both of those. Before we jump into kind of what you're doing now, can you tell us a little bit about your background, your journey? And I always like to hear people like, when did you first dive into this rabbit hole of Bitcoin, blockchain, crypto? Because that's part of what you do now.
I think everybody's crypto journey, it's you either dive in deep when you get into it, or you heard rumors of it and then you investigate it and then you dove in deep. And my journey was more of the latter. I first heard about Bitcoin maybe 2012 from a Gizmodo article. And I recently found that Gizmodo article that put it on my radar. But at the time, I was working for the US government and I had a security clearance. And so the article was talking about how it's used on the dark web and things like that. So I wanted to stay aware of it, but I didn't want to do anything that was going to jeopardize my security clearance. And of course, you realize that was FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And there were only limited use cases of it. And the most prominent and prevalent were the ones where it was used in criminal use. So I stayed aware of the technology, but it wasn't until 2016 that I came across Reggie Middleton's videos talking about decentralized finance and his project called Veritasium and talking about the Ethereum blockchain. I said, okay, blockchain, this is, digital currency, cryptocurrency. And I dove deep. The moment I read the Ethereum white paper, man, I was hooked, as in, I devoured every white paper that I could. I was staying up 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, reading crypto news, finding out different protocols, understanding the different utilities of different protocols and different tokens and chains. And I linked up with a gentleman and we started a company called Cryptonomics Wealth. And it's funny, that community, some of the folks from that community, we still keep in contact. Did some great things with the Cryptonomics Wealth community, did some investments, was pretty successful. And we launched a coin called Amy. Now, once again, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You're worried about the SEC coming after you and things like that. So we really didn't do much with it. But I always ask people, when people say, oh, I've been in Bitcoin or I've been in crypto this long, I don't believe it until I know your wallet address. And your wallet address will tell you all your transactions from your earliest transaction. And that's how you can tell how long somebody actually has been in crypto. From 2016, 2017, like I said, working with Cryptonomics Wealth, working with my partner, we created a coin called Amy. And moving from there, I bought up a lot of ENS names. So being part of the Ethereum naming service, and that what the Ethereum naming service used to be, the process that you had to go through back then versus the process that you have to go through now. I was there with the my Ether wallet days.
Yeah.
And going through that process. You start fast forwarding throughout the years, and I'm making investments in crypto. I got my mom involved in crypto. My mom wanted me to buy Bitcoin. I wasn't too big of a Bitcoin bug, but Ethereum was my thing. But from that, I ran for just still being involved in the space, building in the space, consulting in the space. 2020, I ran for US Senate in the state of Louisiana, and blockchain and crypto was part of my platform. Right. And during that time, I was telling crypto companies that they really need to be involved politically. They really need to be lobbying, because you can't talk about how much money that you're making and not make sure that your politicians are getting some of it. So I'm very happy to see that Coinbase listened to me and the things that they're doing with Stand with Crypto. You got the Blockchain Policy Institute and these different groups, the Global Blockchain Association, and a few others who have recognized the importance of lobbying. 2023, I was sponsored by a company a crypto company to go out and promote their product out in Davos, Switzerland, doing product demos and things like that. And from that experience in 2024, I was asked to speak by Hedera on the integration of blockchain and AI during their panel that they had at the World Economic Forum. And I was on a panel with Dr. Lehman Baird, who we know is the co-founder of Hedera. So just a very wide experience from international, on a local level, in teaching local legislators about blockchain and crypto, even meeting with President Trump and talking about blockchain and crypto. If Kanye would have listened to me, he would have had his own DAO. Really being in some of these large spheres of influence and getting back into those spheres of influence so that we can really have crypto policy that works for the everyday person and also works for the everyday builder.
Yeah, absolutely. That's that whole range. We've got to educate the world, right? We've got
Yep.
local communities, states, countries, business owners, business boards. There's so much to do there. Someone's got to take the time to at least point people in the right direction. I was excited to see when Trump came around because, man, I remember it was like 2017 or 2018. He made a negative tweet about Bitcoin. And I replied back and tagged Robert Kiyosaki because I knew they were friends. I'm like, you really need to talk to your buddy Robert. You're either saying this to protect the dollar or you need to sit down and learn more about this.
Yeah,
I forgot
absolutely.
how I worded it, but yeah, it's good to see things come around because everybody wants adoption, but we're not going to get that if it's just on the fringes and it's got to become more mainstream. Governments understand it, understand how they can benefit from it. I think people are starting to. So the World Economic Forum, how was that? How was the reception to that talk? Because I know that's typically a group that has been anti-crypto blockchain unless they have total control of it. So how was that? How was the reception for that talk? What kind of feedback did you get afterwards?
Very receptive. A lot of industry heavy hitters came to see me speak. And then one of the people that I was surprised that came was, what's her name? Kennedy. Yeah, Kennedy. She used to be married to one of the Cuomos.
Oh, okay.
Robert F. Kennedy's sister.
Yeah.
She came to see me speak. Sheila Warren came to see me speak, right? And Sheila Warren is a big name in the crypto community. The community outside of the blockchain, the industry outside of the blockchain community, they are finally starting to see the technology separated from tokens and cryptocurrency. The challenge is, what are the biggest problems going on, like in the finance industry, that allows for them to integrate it? And we know that finance, it runs the world, but companies like Avery Dennis and a few other companies are already implementing blockchain in their actual enterprise. So you have not only the financial companies, but you also have some of the largest companies in the world that are represented at the World Economic Forum. I received my first carbon credit at the World Economic Forum in 2023.
Was that
right? And that's an investable thing.
Yeah.
So the reception has been pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah. And the name of the game now is real world asset tokenization. And I'm currently working with a team and a project on some RWA stuff. I'm real excited about that.
Yeah. I don't think people realize how big that's going to be. I gave a talk last week to a group of realtors in my hometown that were wanting to learn more about this. And of course, they think I'm just going to go in and talk to them about Bitcoin, crypto, and blockchain in general terms. And I start talking about how it can impact their industry. Yeah. Obviously, buyers want to buy with it. Sellers want to sell with it. People that are borrowing money want to use it as collateral. But outside of that, the industry, like all the different hoops they have to jump through to close on a property. And that's what we got to show people. How can this solve inefficiencies? And you're going to have people that are going to fight it, because if I run a title search company, I'm not too keen on everything being replaced by a smart contract on chain. But just like AI is not going to directly take your job, but if you don't learn how to leverage it, someone that knows how to use it is going to take your job. So same thing. Those title search people and other companies, they're going to want to have to be the ones to be that trusted advisor to still consult on that when it's time to come, versus trying to tell everybody to stay away from it. Because if I can take a closing from 30 days down to 5 or less. Who's not going to want that when it comes to people that are ready to, the ones that are motivated sellers, motivated buyers? Why should it take that long just to move, to transfer money from one person to another and then transfer that asset from one person to another? It should be quick.
And it just shows that if you know that this technology is on its way, you now have to look at what are some of the downstream effects. Because we developed some stuff that allowed us to create a land trust in 15 minutes and then putting that on chain. The other things that blockchain is going to affect your industry either directly or indirectly. So if I'm able to make a closing from, like you said, 30 days to 5 days, right? What's going to happen in the downstream industries? That means that you're going to need inspectors.
Right.
You're going to need inspectors who are going to be able to do a thorough inspection and sign off on these things very quickly. You're going to need, what else are you going to need? The first thing that comes to mind, like I said, was the inspectors.
Yeah. Inspectors and appraisers, I think, are the top two.
And the appraisers. And the challenge with the appraisers is, this is the catch-22. When you're an investor, you want your depending on what kind of investor you are.
Yeah.
If you're an investor that's looking at your property as for income, right? You want the lowest appraisal that you can get so that you can minimize your taxes. But if you're going to be utilizing the property as a piggy bank, you want the highest appraisal that you can get so you can go to the bank with, hey, this is how much I want to loan against the property. So it's very interesting to see how those kinds of things, how you're going to have to think about, oh, I'm going to have to speed up in this particular area. I'm going to have to expand in this particular area. I might have to minimize in this particular area, depending on what industry that you're in that's using blockchain.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that came up when we talked about this last week was, the appraisers. They're already building a huge database of all these appraisals right now, and it's obvious they're going to leverage AI to speed up the process to where they can automate a lot of that too. Yeah, there's going to be efficiencies. They're going to build people that are going to understand how to leverage those tools. That's going to be important.
Yeah, and you got me thinking. Just tax disputes.
Oh yeah,
right. Tax disputes in Louisiana. We have what is adverse possession. We have the adverse possession, and you also have the tax sales and the tax liens. How blockchain can affect those kinds of things, and it's exciting. It's exciting. I don't think I know for sure Louisiana isn't prepared for it, but just to see how blockchain is touching all these different industries, I'm excited about.
Yeah, and I think they're opening up to it more. We had a Category 1 hurricane come through Louisiana where I live a few months ago, and luckily we didn't have any issues. So I was out helping with the volunteers, and the governor came through, and of course everybody that was there knew me for what I do in crypto and blockchain space. So that's how they introduced me. And he looks at his assistant and make sure he get his information, because we still have a lot to learn about this. And I've got some friends that are also helping with the lobbying in Baton Rouge, but every state, every municipality, it can go right as granular as you want it, from the individual to the city, county, or parish, like we have in Louisiana, all the way out. But I think it's going to impact a lot, but especially when you combine that with AI, right? Between AI and blockchain. And what's your thoughts on that? Because I tell everybody, like, AI needs blockchain and blockchain needs AI. It's like a mutually beneficial if you want to get the best results and the best tools, I would think. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you need blockchain if you want to trust AI, and you need AI if you want to make blockchain efficient and usable by everyday people. So that's how I view it. And once again, I was speaking on the integration of blockchain and AI. How do we trust how do we identify the provenance of what AI is using to develop a picture, a video, a text, right? All this different media. How do we utilize blockchain to say, this right here, this information comes from this particular place right here.
Yeah.
So therefore it can be trusted as verified. not as, oh.
Yeah.
So once again, like those kinds of thinking through those kinds of problems where blockchain becomes the marker and literally becomes the metadata layer for AI is, I think, one of the biggest opportunities.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I used to say all the time, like when someone did something, it's like, hey, you got proof, you got a video, but now you can spin up a video that looks real. So yeah,
Absolutely.
you got to prove so many different things, and I think families even need to realize that even if you get a phone call from your dad or mom or child, you got to have some kind of code word that you're not talking to an AI deep fake, and you think they're stranded somewhere and needs money, and then really it's no, they're not. That's just a small example. Take that to a business level. Wasn't there an example? I don't know if you heard about this. It was in the last 6 months, at least, I think, where this guy was tricked by a deep fake of the CTO or CEO and transferred millions of dollars at the behest of this AI deep fake. And I'm sure that story didn't end good for that guy. It's one of those things that we all have to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely saw that story, and it's incredible. It's incredible. It's sad, but it's whoa, the technology has gotten to this level. And you think about it in this perspective, I don't have to pass the Turing test. I just have to be real good at mimicking.
Right. Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
scary. Very,
Yeah.
very exciting. Very, very scary. And I gave a talk on at the Seattle Museum of History and Industry talking about the dangers of AI. And really, we're more afraid of good people going bad using AI than we are of bad people using AI for bad purposes.
Right.
Because good people going bad is a much harder thing to predict than bad people doing bad things with AI.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And the way technology is designed, that's why Bitcoin had that stigma of criminals, only criminals use it, is because criminals are trying to stay a step ahead. So they're always going to leverage the cutting edge technology, whether it's money or anything else. So same thing with AI. They're going to be the first ones because they realize the potential. And yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
We gotta think about that because yeah, you'll hear the same rhetoric about why we need to censor AI, and I don't think that's the case. We need good tools, good options to verify.
We need to ramp up our education. We need to ramp up our policies to meet the technology. And we could have voting on chain right now, but look at all the people who make money as a result of the inefficiencies
Yeah,
in our current voting system, in our current education system, how we could make decisions quickly. And I would say that if more decisions were delegated on a local level, you could have things move faster. You create a national standard, you create a state standard, and then give the local communities the ability to really move fast and figure things out. There's no reason why students shouldn't be using AI on their homework,
right. Yeah,
right?
see,
And
yes,
what do and to add on to that, the teachers are upset about the kids using AI, but the teacher should be using AI to grade the assignments. And if the kids are going to be using AI, just make the assignment 10 times larger.
yeah, yeah. It's no different. When we were in school, our teacher said, "You're not going to have a calculator with you all the time. You're going to need to know this math." And now what? Those teachers are using that calculator because they all have phones in their classroom too, right? But yeah,
Absolutely.
it's really the most successful. We don't want to leverage the tools. I don't, and we struggle right now with one of my kids, and he's smart, but he does. There's certain things he just doesn't remember, like spelling, right? And I'm like, okay, I get it, but you just memorize it. Like being able to learn how to leverage tools to get what you need. That's more important than some of the things that you learn, and they just want you to retain it to be able to pass the test. So,
Yeah.
man, we could you and I could probably dive into the educational system and what needs to change there. But yeah, I definitely agree the school should do that. Something you touched on earlier, man, it really struck a chord with me because I thought back to some conversations I used to have about government, right? About blockchain being able to facilitate voting. And we're still at a part where we're using paper ballots. And not only that, government should be a lot smaller. When you think about why our government was created, we elected representatives to go and represent us because it wasn't feasible, because even it would take sometimes weeks to get to the Capitol back before there were really reliable cars and roads and transportation and planes. And so that's why we would elect officials to go and represent us, whether it's at the state level, at the country level, the federal level. But now we're at a point where we don't need, if we could have individualized voting to where we can all vote, let me vote on that 1,500-page bill that just went through, right? That's going up for a vote. I could take that 1,500-page bill that they tried to push through, plug it into an AI tool that'll give me all the good and bad about it, and then be able to make a better informed vote. Whereas we don't need all that. So it's like technology has evolved to where we don't need representatives to vote on everything for us when we could do it ourselves. And there's a way to verify it with blockchain. Have you seen, I know there's some instances, there's some European countries that have tested out doing voting with Tezos blockchain. Have you seen anything else in that space that are any places that are giving it a shot, trying it out?
I was actually one of the platforms that we worked on. Me and my team we were trying to solve the George Santos problem. And the George Santos problem is what happens when you have a bad politician and you need to get him out. And so we looked in, how do we utilize blockchain technology to assist with recall petitions? And what's required in order to have a recall petition. So that's been one area that is being currently explored. The other thing is it forces us, when we add blockchain to voting, it forces us to rethink the role of our legislators in government. And the challenge that everybody's having is that it means that the veil of deception of what our government is has to fall down. And there are people who are benefiting from that veil of deception on the American people's eyes. What I mean by that is that you start to recognize what things are public and what things are actually private matters. And those are things that you're not taught, and you're not taught in school. And most adults are totally unaware until you start really diving into what your rights are and what our government is. So if we implemented blockchain voting and now you're like, this bill is supposed to be about providing roads. What the heck is this other little piece doing in there for this other thing? Oh, you needed to put that in so that it could get passed. Why can't I, as an individual voter, vote on those particular things, right? And then you, as my representative, you now become the electoral college versus I got you as a representative, and then now I have a bunch of unelected people. I have a bunch of appointed people by this private corporate party that is making decisions of what happens in my public government.
Pulling the strings, yeah.
But if you allow for blockchain voting, then people start realizing like, oh, I don't need this layer of fat anymore. I don't need this anymore. I don't need this anymore. But unfortunately, the people that are in power benefit from the inefficiencies, and oftentimes may not know the structures that are there, but know that they benefit from the current system and are not inclined to dismantle it, are not inclined to make changes to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's different things that could be improved by that. Trim all that fat instead of having them take a bill, and I keep referencing that one that's out there. Give them a 40% raise when we should be. How can we have less government, more people participating? Yeah, but you're right. It's a system of power that has to be broken, and I'm optimistic just behind the fact that no matter how long it takes, the better technology eventually always wins out. It's that wave where any technology, most people don't want to be the first ones to use it or to try it out or be the guinea pigs, but they also don't want to be the last. And that's what happens. And I think that's where we've hit the pivot with the political climate around Bitcoin and crypto and blockchain in the US is we're seeing that pivot because they're realizing like this thing's inevitable. It's happened. More people are starting to see what benefits it could bring, especially those with good intentions, right? They could see the transparency. You talked about public and private earlier. Most people don't even realize like we're private citizens and they're supposed to be public officials, and that whole thing has been inverted and perverted, right? It's that they'll make it look like if you want privacy, it's a bad thing.
Yeah,
And, you know,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
challenge that narrative, right? If privacy is such a bad thing, I think everybody listening to this would say, I would ask them, if you think privacy is a bad thing, why do you have curtains or blinds or shades on all your windows? Are you doing something illegal in there? No, you just don't want everybody looking at what you're doing all the time. And that's
Absolutely.
how I usually describe it to people, especially when they say privacy is bad. Because we were in a discussion earlier about the whole what was the privacy protocol that the developers got.
Tornado Cash.
Yeah, Tornado. I was drawing a blank on the name just now. Yeah, Tornado Cash, right? The developers that are in all this legal trouble. Come on, it's a privacy protocol.
Well, when you start moving in these spheres, you recognize, oh, dude, there's a level of control here. Give you an example. Did you know that if you get, I think, more than $3,000 in money orders, they have to file a suspicious activity report?
Oh man, I didn't know that one. I travel a lot, so I know the $10,000 rule as far as which is crazy. That hasn't gone up with inflation.
I'm utilizing the post office. I'm utilizing the post office. And now, because I'm just exercising my right to commerce, to engage in commerce, I'm exercising my right. Like, now my privacy rights are violated. And so now anytime that I use something that the government provides, that is now created a surveillance tool or utilizes a surveillance tool.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it when you hear like the Jim Rickards and Mike Maloney when they talk about these things, but now it's, oh, now that I've reached that level, I'm like, I get it now. Your privacy becomes so much. You're now paying for privacy because you realize that the moment that people start have an idea, they're like, oh, well, I'm just living my life as an American. What are you worried about? Why are you worried about what I'm doing? I'm following the laws. I'm contributing to society. I'm paying my taxes. Why do you need to have this level of surveillance on me? And
Yeah.
you sound crazy when you're talking to people who aren't in the know. But those that are in the know, you're like, oh, I get it now. I'm sorry I ever criticized you before I got to this level.
Oh yeah, and it's coming down to more people, right? Because if I've got a report that I sent my mom $600 on PayPal, it gets to a point where more and more people are starting to wake up, realize. I think the last 4 years have definitely been eye opening for a lot of people because, man, in 2019, I was posting hard and heavy about inflation, about the banks that were in trouble because of all those repo loans. They were like all the money that the banks were having to borrow just for liquidity. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
we're headed towards some kind of crisis. And then
Yeah.
what happened? I was thinking like there was gonna be this big collapse of the banks, but no, what happened? We had a pandemic, we printed a ton of money, and all of a sudden these banks, most of the banks weren't in trouble anymore. And more people are realizing that, oh, this inflation thing really did happen. It's crazy. Like we printed a ton of money and everything went up in price. And so I think more and more people are waking up. I think that's why we're in a spot where information is more readily available than ever. And the problem is, so is misinformation. So it's more and more people are starting to realize, hey, the news is telling me this is happening, but what I'm seeing with my eyes is the complete opposite, right? I think that's where we're headed. So, Dr. Jamar, man, it's been a pleasure having you on. So we're going to wrap up here soon. So a couple of things. Where can people follow you to find out more about what you do and keep up with you? What's the best place for people to link up with you?
Wayne, I'm glad, like I said, that we found each other. Best way to get in contact with me is www.drjamarmontgomery.com. DRJAMAR Montgomery, MONTGOMERY.com. drjamarmontgomery.com. Dr. Jamar Montgomery on TikTok. Dr. Jamar Montgomery on Instagram. And Doc Monty for us. DOCMONTYFORUS on X. And I'm even on Blue Sky, Dr. Jamar Montgomery as well. So hit me up on all my socials. I'm probably most active on TikTok and also YouTube, Dr. Jamar Montgomery on YouTube. For any video content, I'm usually most active on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Nice. Definitely give them a follow. Any final words before we wrap up for the audience?
The only rights you have are the ones that you exercise. Exercise your right to create wealth. Wealth creation is the new civil rights movement.
Powerful, powerful words. Dr. Jamar, thanks again for joining us. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.
Take care.